Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of appreciation to Abraham Mohammed, Adrian Quintana, Alistair Main, Billy Highvault, Burn Fat Till My Stomach Is As Flat As The Earth, Chow Yun Cat, who just increased their donation. Thank you very much, Chow Yun Cat. Dank, Dave Rakia Gafford, David Wayne Foster, Edwin Johnson, Erwin Jennisons, Felix Hung, Fireball X, God Rockin, Henrik86, Jeranism, Joshua Balsimo, Kirsten Smith, Liam Nedrick, Life is Short, Matt, Missouri Bear, Nagara, Naibai, Guitar Craig, Reinhardt, Rene, Sally Ballis, Silver Umbrella, Skeptic936, The Flat Earth Sun, Moon and Zodiac Clock App, theflatearthchannel.com, Tina Baker, and Tom Hawkins. A massive shout out of appreciation to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now, we are joined by a few people in G+, I believe. We've got, let's have a look. We have got Righteous Force, The One, and 10th Man. So I'll raise the mic on them and you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for the first live show.
On like, you know, the whole meaning of life thing and stuff like that. Because some of the Discord channels have like, let's say, a religious section.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I enjoy it more.
Well, that I have family members who are reaching mortality, right? They're getting older. They know they're going to be dying, and they're really thinking about that now because they can feel it in their body. They know they don't have 20, 30 years left anymore.
Yeah.
So mortality is equal opportunity employer. Everyone's going to succumb to it. And
But
you better have a pretty good answer as to why you're here and what your purpose is, because you're about to see the other side.
yeah, I hear what you're saying. But like, haven't you noticed how there's layers of deceptions? Like, even about what the meaning of life is, there's like so many layers. Like, let's say if we just take Christianity, and there's so many denominations, and there's so much like division. Like, a lot of people think they're out of a lie, not to realize that they're in another box of lies. I'm thinking within that framework.
That's exactly true, and that's why the whole thing is validated in that. Meaning, people will say, "Oh, the Jesus story is replicated because there was Mitri or Horus and all these other things before." And there's a similar type of a thing. So they'll try to find the connection that this is another story of another person with a message about whatever, and it's just being repeated. Okay, well, I need support, for that claim. And mythology, where did it come from? And if you believe what I believe, which is the Bible, then you realize you have an arch enemy, the devil, who's going to want to confuse everybody about truth, just like he did in the garden when he said, "Oh, did God say you can't have the fruit of that tree?" No, what he really meant was, if you have it, you're going to become a god. So he takes part of the truth and twists it and deceives. So it's the same deception played on
Wait,
everybody.
but the Bible says there is no truth in the devil. Jesus said that.
No, he can't. He's a liar from the beginning. But what he does, he takes the truth and distorts it. So he comes with half-truths. And so when he was tempting Jesus in the wilderness, Jesus would only answer back with scripture to him. But he says, "How about this? Tell your angels to catch you. Jump off this cliff."
You know what the devil was doing there? He was actually quoting Jesus' scripture.
That's
But
what I'm
Jesus
saying.
was replying with the full context of scripture.
Thank you very much. Exactly the point. So he'll take something of what God stands for and says and twist it to keep deceiving people. So now you got all these religions who claim to know Jesus. Well, that's great. Let's see who Jesus is from the source that we get everything about Jesus, the Gospels. Well, when you read the four Gospels and the eyewitness testimony of Jesus Christ, it doesn't match the Mormon Jesus, the Jehovah's Witness Jesus, the Hindu Jesus, the Muslim Jesus. It doesn't match any of those. So you have to decide.
Here's the interesting thing. If the devil can quote scripture, that means he can quote scripture to not just Jesus, but to other followers and deceive them that way too. And they think, aha, I got it figured out.
Well,
But
what
in
do
a
you
sense,
think?
they just bought a lie.
Why do you think in Galatians it says, if we or an angel appear to you and give you a different gospel, let him be accursed. So who appeared to Muhammad? An angel. Who appeared to Joseph Smith? An angel. And gave him a different gospel, a different message. So at the end, it's between the person and the true God. Now you say, well, how do you validate that? Well, it's simple. With a pure heart, start crying out and say, God, I want to know you, and I don't want to be deceived. I want you to fight through all the deceptions and lead me to the truth, because I really want to know you. And that was my prayer when I was young. And so to me, God is not going to allow anyone who's crying out with that kind of purity of heart to know God, not to find him. And that's on God. That's on God when someone cries out. If he doesn't answer, that's on God, right? So I trust God is loving and caring, so he will answer. Well, in my life, he did, so I could verify that at least. Look at the flat Earth community with all the different reasons why they think the Earth is flat. I believe the Earth is flat because the Bible teaches it. Okay, other person say, well, I don't believe the Bible, but I believe the Earth is flat. Okay, well, who made it? Well, somebody made it. It didn't just appear. So, I mean, there's so many different things. You can be a Hindu and believe in 40 million different gods. Well, someone could be a Hindu flat earther. But all power to them. But, you know, they don't have to answer to me when they die. They're going to have to answer to God.
You know, when I first started researching flat Earth, and then I heard the connections to the Bible, I was like, that is interesting, but I still didn't start with the scriptures. I started looking at the empirical evidence first. But some people say they came from the other way around. They started with the Bible first, and then they looked at the empirical evidence in the natural world.
And the reason someone would say that is because they believe the Word of God to be the Word of God. So they hold it above anything else. And that would describe me. But if I wasn't a Christian, I wouldn't have gone to the Bible. Or if I wasn't familiar with the Bible and what the Word of God is, I probably wouldn't have gone to the Bible either. But after going to the Bible, then I could see the empirical evidence destroys the round Earth, the heliocentric model, and they don't have any valid proof for that. And so it just makes what the Bible says, written a long, long time ago, even shine better for me.
But do you know how, let's say we have always a counter argument? Well, it's not even really an argument, but so-called counter arguments to FE claims.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing with the Bible. You say it's a flat Earth book, and there's still people out there that say, no. It can be interpreted like so and so, and just another just so story to counter your story.
Well, that's why you say, please show me the scripture where you see that. And
But
they have one scripture. There's only one scripture that I've seen so far: the circle of the earth. Well, yeah, that's
that's
circle.
not even either.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. So it's a circle. Is it a disc? What is it? What circle? Okay, and then the other one, it hangs on nothing. Okay, well, that could be taken, and I've read that passage many times. It doesn't hang on anything. It doesn't mean it hangs on nothing like it's hanging on nothing, but it just means because of all the overwhelming scriptures of it having pillars and foundation and stationary, you have one that says it hangs on nothing. So why not just accept it for what it says? It doesn't hang on anything. It's not saying it's a ball and hangs on nothing. It's just saying it hangs on nothing. Because
So
you
my
got
point,
all.
Sorry, go on, continue.
Well, you got all the other evidence that it's stationary and non-movable. Job 38, God put boundaries on it, stretched the line across it. The whole, I mean, I could just go from Genesis all the way to Revelation on just a word search on Earth and things, and you don't get ball out of it. You don't get outer space. You don't get vacuum of space.
I agree,
You,
but people just seem, how do I say? It seems like you just can't convince people. They'll always twist something.
welcome to the nature of our planet. Look at Zanuck with reference frames. He knows what a reference frame is, but look what he goes to the nth degree and tries to say there are millions of them.
Yeah, but it's kind of like, in a sense, it's frustrating. But then again, you also got to realize people are at different levels, and sometimes maybe it's not meant for them, or it's not ready. They're not ready for it to be revealed, or something like that.
I know what you're saying. It's if the person doesn't want to accept it the way it is, they're going to come up with their own version. Like I meet people, well, my Jesus is not God in human form. Well, what is your Jesus then? Because that's the Jesus that the Bible teaches. So then they give me their version of Jesus. All right, well, they got the wrong Jesus. That's not the Bible Jesus. Go on, go to your death with that Jesus. See how good that will work for you. I mean, to each his own. Everyone's got to decide. Everyone will be held responsible for how they live, what they've done. And, you could misinterpret, fool, deceive all you want here. One day you're going to stand in judgment for it. That's
But
for me, that's everybody.
it's pretty bizarre how easily deceived we are.
We're sheep. What do you think the Bible says? Man, we are like sheep. I've owned sheep. They're stupid, like we are at times. Trying to help them, they think they run away when you're trying to help them. Well, as Descartes says, Nathan's often quoted it, and people have quoted it here. Was it, I live, therefore I am?
I think, therefore I am. Descartes.
Yes. Yeah, very, very profound. Sounds silly at first, but when you dwell on it, it's a very profound statement, and one that you can think about all your life and not get bored. He was out from my research. He was out to prove if anything is real, if everything's an imagination. And he finally settled on that, which was, I'm thinking. I am real. I am, because I'm thinking. It was awesome.
Does anybody else join the hangout? Actually got it minimised.
Just the one. But he's up for smoke.
Oh,
I'm here.
hey, the one.
Hey, Nathan. Nathan, can we post a link in the live chat for the Discord to go Play Lounge server?
Yeah.
Should I post the link here, or?
When you say the live chat, do you mean the YouTube live chat?
Yeah.
I won't let you post links.
Okay.
Sorry.
But then Master B. I was talking to someone yesterday on Flat Earth. And it's funny how they treat it. It was the same conversation I had earlier with Righteous about the personnel politics. So it was funny how I'm talking Flat Earth and it's monumental consequences of being lied to on such a massive scale and why they lied to him. We can go on and on for that. And then they, with the nod of the head, like in agreement, and then they switch it to something in politics or something else. And I said, stop. Is this the...
Good morning, guys.
Well,
Well,
good
I
morning.
speak about
Is
politics,
this the
but I
best?
actually use politics to wrap it into why it's obvious that, like, it's easy for people to lie right in front of our faces. It's not that we're proving, it's more than just showing someone is a liar, because even though we know people lie, we still let them get away with it. Or not let them get away with it, but they just continue with the get along. They just continue about their day like nothing ever happened, like how Glober's coming. Government's the same way. Something happens in government, not the government specifically, but people that make up the government, they say, sorry about that.
It's all right.
They,
Can you back off?
they do things and then they aren't held accountable. Everybody speaks generally about how bad it is, and then those politicians go on about their day. It's a little more nuanced than that.
Can you back off your mic a couple of inches? You're terribly distorted and way too loud. I've sorted the loudness problem out, but can you just back off your mic so you're a bit less distorted? Elijah.
Yeah, sorry.
That's all right. That's much better straight away. Just you saying sorry was miles better, so I'm good.
Yeah, no, that's a good point too, Elijah. I was coming from another angle on it, which was, it's like, let's talk sports. And then they say, well, let's talk about what we're going to have for dinner. Okay, let's talk about what movie we're going to watch. Or let's talk about this. It's like they just hop. You bring up flat earth and it's like another conversation at the same level of who's going to win this game later on today on TV. It's like, wait a minute, is this where humanity's sunk to, where you can't have anything shock you anymore? You can't have a deep conversation about what's going on, and you're going to bring flat earth and put it at the level of like a cookie recipe that someone wants to make. I mean, it's like, wait, your reaction blows me away. You know, sometimes, not you, but when I see people, I say, your reaction blows me away. How calmly you take what I say about flat earth. Are you just dismissing it and just nodding just so we can move on to another subject, or what? Did you not take me seriously?
Start live in about a minute. Why?
All right. I guess I'll say this. I was in a politics Discord once because they had like a flat earth thing there. So a bunch of us just went there. And I kind of stuck around like the next day and kind of went in where they talk about politics. And it seems like all they do, even just looking through text chat, seems like all they do is appeal to authority. And it's just like, I don't know, it's like the blind leading the blind kind of thing.
Yeah. I remember going on Steve McRae's show, and one of the first things they said was, we accept a consensus reality. Yes, it is about consensus. You're like, what?
And that's the problem, because, you know, when we're fighting, we're not fighting each other. We're fighting the ideas of the TV talking heads. Like, that's it. We don't represent their values. They don't represent ours. But for some reason, we think we're arguing for a side.
Yeah.
Well, everything's turned into like a sporting event.
They think we're arguing for a flat earth side.
Elijah,
But that's not the case. We're arguing the fact that we're being lied to straight up. You don't need to ask me, well, what do I believe, because I'm pointing out your lie.
Elijah, your sound is horrendous. Please, can you back off your mic? Please. It's absolutely horrendous.
I'm sorry.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. Now we are joined by 10th Man, The One, and Righteous Force in G+. Very good to have you one and all.
Good morning.
Good to be here.
Very good to have you. We're also joined by Billy Bars, Buster, Elijah, Red Man, and Unicorn Laser Eyes in Discord. Good to have you all. So,
Good morning.
Hello, hello, hello.
hello, hello, hello. Any signs of Earth curvature?
Hello.
Not from Half Moon Bay.
Not from New Mexico.
Afraid not.
Any signs of axial rotation?
Nope.
Not of the
None
Earth-based variety.
whatsoever.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Don't even know what it is.
No distance verification there.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Oh, what was that word again?
Gravity what?
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Well, the only one I know is when I pick up something and I let go, I cause something.
You mean when you force something out of equilibrium and then let it
Yes.
return from whence it came?
Yes, I caused that.
Darwin calls that... Does he call that? Relative density disequilibrium?
Yeah, disequilibrium and equilibrium and relative density all combined.
Right. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
No,
Still
it's
waiting for Dr. Becky.
And Danny Faulkner thinks that he has some, but basically it's all fairy tales. Created by
Speaking of-
scientists.
Speaking of Danny Faulkner, did he ever respond to anything in any way, form, or shape?
Yeah. He posted a reply to Anthony Riley, otherwise known as YouTuber Sleeping Warrior, in Facebook with a link to the redneck retard and his gas pressure inside two different containers, one sealed, one open.
But this is the same Danny Flat Earthers. Just go to a YouTube channel and don't do any research and post
That's
things
correct.
on
Yes,
the internet.
that's correct. So he was asked at the Flat Earth conference, which he was in attendance at, by Nathan Thompson, how can you have gas pressure without a container? It yielded silence from Dr. Daniel Faulkner, who later, as I explained, went onto Facebook to reply to the same question with a link to the redneck retard and gas pressure in two different types of container, one sealed, one unsealed, a pipe about 30 foot long. So Danny Faulkner demonstrated his total lack of understanding of the second law of thermodynamics and how entropy works.
He didn't even take his own advice.
No, not only that, he projected his ineptitude onto the flat earthers he was critiquing. So he suggested that the people who were unable to debunk flat earth simply went onto the internet, did a search, and were unable to find the right results. Instead, they should have gone to him. And what he does is go on the internet, check out what he can find on YouTube, and then give that as his reply. So it was mere projection of his own ineptitude onto us.
Interesting that a person with such education and degrees and having people look at him with such trust would do that.
Speaking of Danny Faulkner and Nathan Thompson's question to him, any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
No, it'd be a violation of natural law. But we'd like to see it if you could demonstrate it.
It can't be, as you say, it would violate natural law. However, the entire heliocentric religion is based upon that fundamental violation of natural law. The sky, in their world, is a vacuum. Now, the sky is not a vacuum. The gas we breathe would fill the space.
How true.
Any evidence of the R value, Earth radius? Hey, Ranty, good to have you.
Hey, you alright?
Good stream this morning. Was it a Ruhif video that you were... I couldn't quite glean when I joined the stream if you were responding to a Ruhif video that was in response to someone else. Hey, Arwin, good to have you.
Arwin, Ranty.
So it was a video by some guy called Where's Wally, but Ruhif had sent me the link to it to sort of like make me go and view it this morning. So he sent me that on Skype, so I had a watch of it, and I didn't think much of it, to be honest.
Fair enough. So, Earth radius, R value, anybody?
Time for someone to make a very long tape measure if they're going to do that.
Yeah.
That's
How
not
do you suppose that a light in the sky is the same size as the Earth you're standing on? So first of all, you think that both objects are spherical in nature. Then you decide that they're in the same size. And then you triangulate other celestial objects with that presupposition. It's, oh my God.
You're referring to
Well, why
Christian
don't
Huygens, right? Christian Huygens just assumed Venus was the same size and sphericity as Earth with the same radius.
This is a point that I'd like to pose a question. So they go to Venus for the measurement, right? But they can see the, if I'm saying it right, because corpuscular rays of the sun coming at an angle. Same time they're telling us the sun is 93 million miles away and the rays of the sunlight should be at 90 degrees hitting this Earth. But when we look at it coming through the clouds, you can see it's giving you a triangulation already right there. So their own math, they don't want to apply to the angles of the rays of the sun, but they'll go to Venus to tell you everything else. It's ridiculous. Why don't they use their math when it's inconvenient to them?
Shout out to Al Junkie. Nathan Oakley 1980. Hello Nathan / panel. Happy 2020. Happy 2020 to you too, Al. Really appreciate your support. Last but by no means least, any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No evidence.
See, even Marvel won't touch on something like that.
Marvel? The comic people?
Yeah.
What relevance is that?
Well, it's too far-fetched even for their films.
Also a fundamental part of the heliocentric religion. But yes, very far-fetched, even for cartoonists. That concludes the housekeeping. Thank you very much.
Yeah, leading on from your question earlier, Nathan, about this Where's Wally and stuff, an understanding of perspective and how, you know, the apparent horizon will appear to shift in position to things in the foreground. That can be easily demonstrated if you imagine yourself surrounded by fog. And if you had, if you're surrounded by fog and you could only see for 5 feet, where would your apparent horizon be?
Sorry, fog isn't part of the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator. I think you'll find it's always Earth curve that we're referring to here, so I don't know what this fog stuff is. If stuff's being obscured, it's Earth curve, mate, don't you know?
We can use that as a demonstration as for atmosphere. You know, go on, play along, Nathan. Where would the perceived horizon be?
Much closer.
So
Lower down. Lower down.
Lower down. And then what happens if the fog dissipates a little and you can see for 10 feet?
Oh, the horizon would... The apparent position where the sky appears to meet the ground would raise up in your field of vision, as you could see further.
Indeed. It's a very simple concept that some of these globers don't understand. And one other thing, I actually listened back to his video again, and it appears that he's trying to claim that it's a superior mirage that's being evidenced in the footage from Harry Baird, which is completely at odds of for the information that I've asked for, which is prove that something is being loomed up beyond Earth curvature. So I'm not asking for a superior mirage. I'm asking for proof of looming. Very simple. They obviously don't get the concepts and they don't understand perspective.
No, it's always looming. Again, the calculator dictates what you should or shouldn't see. It's not your eyeballs and whether or not you can see a boat or the Isle of Man on screen now at whatever it is, 65 miles. Well, my eyes dictate that. I am a flat earther. I see the Isle of Man at 65 miles. That's the end of our statement. Now, in the case of your images this morning, a boat and a higher horizon, a not actual location, I might add, is being argued about and justified by way of the calculator and what it says should or shouldn't be there. And the measurements they're going to use, of course, will exclude all angular resolution limits that anything might reach or breach, because they're going to look at the feet and inches value, calculate it by pixel, and then tell you that things should be there or aren't there because Earth's obscuring them, even though they haven't accounted for the fact that things get smaller as they get further away, to the point where they disappear. That's the only correction I wanted to make for you, Ranty, and I'm sure you'll appreciate that it's fair game. You said, people used to ask us why we can't see New York. And you said, well, because there's too much atmosphere in the way. And I used to say the same thing. I've got a video on exactly that subject. Shout out to Shatner's Bassoon for the super chat. He said, the heliocentric model is a spiritual, intellectual and physical hamster wheel. Thanks for helping me break it. Well, that's an absolute pleasure, Shatner's Bassoon. Really appreciate your support. So the angular resolution limit is something that they're going to ignore, and you have, by way of atmospheric conditions, also ignored it. So you're saying, why can't we see New York? Because there's too much atmosphere in the way. Now, my demonstration was with a glass. So I got a glass with a couple of scratches on it, an old glass, and then put another glass behind it in front of my window and showed that things are being slowly obscured by the amount of atmospheric debris in the air. And over a given distance, that's going to increase. Well, that's true. I don't disagree with what you said on your stream, but it's not the reason you can't see New York. It's too small to see. That's the only reason. It doesn't matter how good the atmosphere got, you're never going to see it. The reason they say you can see your own arse in a telescope with refraction is because they haven't accounted for the fact that your own arse would be too small to see if light was bending around their presupposed sphere, but they completely ignore the fact that you're too small to see in your own telescope when light's bending all the way around a sphere. Well, can you see that resolution? Of course not. But they will absolutely maintain that you can see your own arse in a telescope if the conditions are right, because they only account for what they say are the conditions, and then they arbitrarily apply 7/6R and call that refraction, when in reality it's just a namesake, terrestrial refraction, sod all to do with the conditions. But back to the main point and my critique, my only critique I might add. Very good stream, Ranty. Check it out. Ranty Flat Earth channel. If you're not subscribed already, why the hell not? Anyway. The only critique is that it's not because of the atmosphere, it's because it's too small.
Well, yeah, I mean, in that particular instance, when I mentioned New York to Paris, yeah, I should have included, obviously, the angular size of what you're trying to see would be too small. It would be less than a pixel, so it would just blend into the horizon. But in this particular case, the whole video was about where the perceived horizon was. And the simple point is that they just don't understand perspective. And I'll ask this again for those people that do these curve calculator bullshit things. Please put some atmosphere in there, because as flat earthers, we understand that the air plays a valuable part in how far you can see and the effects of perspective. But you don't include that in your little models of your Earth curve calculators and how far we should be able to see, etc. So that's something for you to get stuck into in 2020. Start making it more reality. Put some perspective in there and put some atmosphere in there as well.
Air in there. What's this atmosphere horseshit? No.
Put some air in there, yeah.
Air. Right? Atmo means air. Sphere means fundamentalist religious zealot presupposition of a globe Earth. Sod that. Air.
And dirty air at that as well. Put the pollen in there. Yeah, and put maybe do some evaporation as well over water. Put some of the evaporation effects in there. Put all these kind of effects in.
Yeah, as opposed to assuming all of those effects boil down to light bending around a presupposed sphere Earth at the rate of 7/6 of that presupposed radius value that you get for your presupposed Earth. That's not going to cut it. when there's air. Anyway, shout out to Elijah, who's on the Discord panel, who says, here's for suffering my mic woes, lol. Earth's flat. Yeah, I gave Elijah an earful just before the live show started because of his horrendous mic. I'm really sorry, but thank you for the support. I really appreciate it. And another shout out to Al Junkie, who has now slipped off the screen. Let's see if I can read it in the tiny resolution on my big screen. Globers been Wally. No. Logical. I can't read it. It's too small. The text is too tiny. Thank you very much for the super chat. Can somebody on the panel read Al Junkie's super chat if they can? Because I can't read it. The text is just too small on my screen.
Yeah, sure. Globers have bigger willy. No. Logical fallacy.
Oh, I see.
I don't know.
I've got it up on the other screen now. Glober's bigger willy. It wasn't just me. It is actually written like it sounded when I said it. No, logical fallacy. Okay, that's double Dutch. I'm sure there was something pronounceable in there, and I've butchered it as is chocolate. So it's not just me. I really appreciate your support, though. Thank you very much.
He's entering my territory. I understand it.
He's getting the puns in, is he?
Yeah, that's a pun. Play on words there.
Excellent. So yeah, atmosphere, air, sphere, fundamentalist religious presupposition of a globe Earth and the air wrapping around it.
Atmo plane, Captain Atmo.
Air. When we're talking about what's between me and the target, so on screen now, barrow in finesse, a boat, and a clock tower. Now, that's all in this frame. I'm going to circle it just so the audience know what I'm talking about. We don't often talk about this particular shot the Ranties took, but this is pre-zoomed in. So you've got, there's the boat, and about 3 pixels is the clock. Well, it's very far away, right? It's tiny. It's very, very small. Well, what's between us and the boat? Air. That's it. There's no atmo plane or atmosphere, just air. That's it. Hey, Adam, good to have you.
Afternoon, everyone. Hi, Nath.
Hello.
Hey, Adam.
Good, just a quick shout out to Godzilla37, who says, at least the Earth was spinning. At least if the Earth was spinning, there'd be a chance Brenda would fly off it. Happy New Year. Very funny. Thanks, Godzilla. Really appreciate your support.
So, Sir Adam Meekin, when I say Captain Atmo, you arrive. So that's your new nickname, Captain Atmo.
Well, that'll do.
Jason McCormack says, light is bending, light is not straight. Can you prove that? When I look at crepuscular rays, they look pretty damn straight to me. They don't look to be curving.
Okay.
That's just a statement of belief that you've now got to unpick, Randy, from some random.
Some random, yeah, saying that light curves.
Light curves disprove me, Randy.
Yeah, but it doesn't. Like, literally ever. That's just a factually incorrect statement. Light never curves would be more factually accurate. You can get light to change direction, but that's not curving.
What, not even around a presupposed ball?
Light does not curve.
Speaking of the subject, Nathan, you called show midway through the year, I think it was, when you brought on the brick and you stack a brick on top of a brick as it goes further away because you can't see the initial brick because of angular resolution. Remember that?
My proudest ever example of anything. Yes, I definitely remember.
Give us a summary.
I'll give you kudos there, Nathan. I used that on the tour, mate. That was it's a fantastic.
As you're talking, Adam, you can be my patsy then, or whatever I'd call it. You can be my puppet, if that's okay. So, if I put a brick at 10 feet in front of me, can I see it?
Yes.
So I have a wide enough angle to see the brick at 10 feet. If I put the brick at 100 feet, can I see it? Maybe.
No, because Earth curvature will obscure it.
Play along nicely.
All right, sorry.
But there's a reasonable chance at 100 feet you'll still see it. Would you not agree?
Maybe just. I can just make it out.
Perfect. So if I put a brick at a mile, can I see it?
No.
So at a mile,
Too small.
the brick's too small to see. So if I then pile on top of it a skyscraper's worth of other bricks at a mile, can you see a skyscraper at a mile?
Yes.
But the brick that's at the bottom, with the most limited angle, is still too small to see.
Oh, yeah.
So, ergo, at a mile, we've lost the bottom brick, but can still see the rest of the skyscraper due to an angular limitation, i.e. the bottom brick is too small to see, with the most limited angle against the deck.
So if I stood up, I might stand a chance of seeing it.
If you stood up, your angle against the deck would increase, and therefore you may, at a mile, increase the angle enough to bring back the brick, because you've increased your angular resolution to the brick. But ultimately
not because I'm looking over the curve a bit further.
No. So a brick at a mile, or let's call it a 10-foot wall. A 10-foot wall at 10 miles is too small to see. But a skyscraper at 10 miles, you've got a fairly high likelihood of being able to see that skyscraper, even though the 10-foot wall you built it on top of is still too small to see. Shout out to Julio Pabon. Let's just scroll down and find you. Actually read you out.
I have something to share if you've got a moment after this, Nathan.
Yeah, go ahead. If you can do that, I'll then shout out Julio Pabon once I can actually get to him. So
I've had enough pain of the patsy.
Thank you very much, Adam. I really appreciate it.
Let me know when I'm sharing, Nathan.
You are, but I'll get you looking pretty while you start.
Okay. So, an excellent flat earther out there. She's been going for a while, Jenna Fredo. So this must have been another experiment down, or a test down at the racetrack after I did mine, because she did this around about 8 months ago. So it would have been just after I did mine. Now what she's done here is she's put a camera down at one end of the 100 meters start, and she's looking at an object in the distance. And as you can see, the object is pretty unrecognizable. You don't know what it is. And she's showing you this through the video. She's showing you through the video. And then what she's going to do is she's going to stand up a little bit higher, and she's going to show you what it actually is. And it's a spirit level at the end of the track. Now she's 100 meters away, same distance that I did mine from, but just on a different day when she's looking very close to the ground with a different type of camera. Well, probably this P900 as opposed to a P1000. And you can actually see the distortion that she's getting with that type of equipment, and on this particular day, which is just there, you can barely make it out. She's already lost half of the level, basically, due to what, Nathan?
Well, I mean, could be Earth curve
on a 100-meter flat track, Nathan.
Yeah, could be Earth curve.
Don't you remember a similar one? Probably a year ago. I remember you having to defend the ballers. We did it on a football pitch, and they tried to make out that the pitcher had curvature in it for runoff of rain, but of course you were looking at the wrong plane of the football pitch. You were looking down it, so the runoff would be to the sides. But again,
yeah,
if use.
But this is obviously a racetrack. It's designed to be flat. That's what it is. That's why when I went and did mine, I was able to see on a very clear day down to the bottom where you got a little bit of distortion. On this particular day, you're still looking through atmosphere at a very low angle, and look at the image that's being produced as you're looking through air, Nathan. What happens when you're looking through air? But when you stand up and you get away from the ground, you can actually see that. You can see all of the object without any distortions on it.
Very good stuff.
Yeah, I thought so.
See something new from Jenna Fredo. Also, she's from my memory, she's typically like long distance scenic observations as opposed to this sort of thing. angle of attack, basically.
Yeah, well, it's nice that she's actually got into this and repeated the observation I did, because I went along and did this observation and I pretty much saw this the whole way down. But because the P1000 has such a thick lens, you know, so far it's at least 2.5 inches off the center of the floor, and it has obviously a big sensor. I was able to see most of the objects I was trying to see, and we was getting a little bit of distortion down at the bottom. So this is with the P1, this is with the P900 that she's using, which obviously gets you lower to the ground. And obviously you can see in this particular set of images here, it's all just distorted and blurred. And this is what we get. This is what you see when you're looking over a very shallow, narrow angle.
Good stuff.
So, Ranty, have you shown this to a baller and gotten a response?
No, it's the first time I've talked about it. I found this video about a week ago. I actually sent it to Nathan, but I don't think he had a chance to look at it. But yeah, it backs up his claim about you losing the brick. Well, what essentially you're losing is you're losing data. You're losing data. So the camera can't capture all this data. So it just becomes a smudge. So it becomes a smudge. Even though you should have clear line of sight to it, it's not. It's just distorted. It's just a smudge. This is what we see when you're looking through air. You get all this distortion going on.
Right. See the Rayleigh criterion. Just a quick shout out to Julio Pabon, who says, if light curves... Let's just put you onto my screen. Didn't expect you to stop, Ranty. If light curves, then the green laser from my Glock would make me... Oh, go on.
I was coughing again. I thought I was on mute.
That's okay. If light curves, then the green laser on my Glock would make me a horrible shot. And I am not. Thank you very much for the super chat, Julio Pabon. Indeedy do. Yeah, thanks for the presentation, Ranty. As you rightly demonstrate, you're going to reach and breach that limitation of angular resolution calculable in the Rayleigh criterion. And at that point, you get interference. It's the diffraction limit. Or you can just blame Earth curve and assume R. Obviously, it's up to you. Your religious beliefs may vary.
It was lost to Earth curve, Nate.
Oh, what a crock of crap.
I was tracking with you, Ranty, until you leveled me.
Some of them take a second temp, don't they?
Yeah, we got it. We got it.
No, it was me. It took a second on that one.
That's because you live in a bubble, Adam.
Yeah. Oh, I'm happy in my bubble.
Can I join you in your bubble?
You're more than well. There's room for two.
Oh, good.
Come on, guys. As we're coming to the end of 2019, what have we learned?
I'm going to shout out
I
Alexander.
think,
Just one sec. He says, Happy New Year to all of Flat Earth Debate Crew and to all open-minded people in chat. Also, special thanks to all globe defenders around the Flat Earth, because without them, this debate wouldn't exist. Yeah, right on, Alexander. While the prevailing religion of the Western world is a heliocentric religion, then I'll always have a show. So yeah, thank you for the super chat. Quite correct, indeed.
Shout out to Jimbo Con as well, who says, Ranty is an evil, despicable YouTuber. Thank you very much.
Shout out retracted. Ranty's ace. That's not true.
So what have we learned
Happy
this
New
year,
Year,
guys?
everyone, from Australia.
Happy New Year.
It's already 2020 over here.
Oh, brilliant. Happy New Year to you, Ramscorp.
Thank you. Happy New Year to all of you as well.
Hey, Ramscott, in the future, is it a lot flatter in 2020? Have we reached
It's
that
as flat
critical
as
mass?
it's always been.
Well, to your question, Ranty, I think if we to reminisce some of the key points of 2019 and the debate, the roundabout, the Coriolis, Neil deGrasse Tyson with the football. I think that was a death blow. And how on the show with all the different contributors to where now they don't even get a chance on Coriolis. I think that was one of the major things this year to fine-tune that argument.
I think housekeeping was an important part too. That was definitely this year.
Hey, Chocolate. Housekeeping's been around more than this year. Just seems
You think-
like yesterday.
Good morning, guys.
In the format that we have it.
Yeah, it is. The reason I know that is because Zoe Scribner, who's also known as Be Here and Love, made a song, or a start of a song, which ended up being the perfect length that I wanted, called Stationary Plane. And about, I don't know, it's probably 2 or 3 months, maybe even more, after making Housekeeping and having done it, continuously on the show, I then put the housekeeping questions to her music and put it as my channel ad, and so it remains. And it's well over, a lot longer than, it's probably 18 months old, that song. So, housekeeping's been around a while. It just, time flies when you're having fun, right? Housekeeping is an excellent addition. I don't disagree with you, Auntie. By the way, hello, Chocolate. You're about to get a mention in regards to Coriolis, Chocolate. So Coriolis gets the most kudos from Chocolate, while we were picking apart the arguments and figuring out how they debate the way they debate, in the same way we did with Isle of Man and the curve calculator and the wind turbines of Rantes. We did the same with Coriolis, but Chocolate was the first off the stocks, or whatever they call them, off the blocks, and said, no, we've got to stop begging the question. I'll give kudos to Anthony as well. So Sleeping Warrior was similar, and he was like, I just hate begging the question. But that's because he didn't want to pick apart the argument in the same way I didn't want to pick apart gravity in the way he did. But nonetheless, we've all got our, the bits of the housekeeping that we like to focus on. Which is weird, because I hate Coriolis. But it's ended up being the thing I've focused on. Maybe Anthony hates gravity. But yeah, like I say, Chocolate was the first to say, look, we've got to stop assuming Earth turn at the beginning of each of these arguments, and essentially saying we've got to stop begging the question. But I was still well into wanting to pick apart the argument, like I say, how Anthony wanted to pick apart gravity.
Well, don't get me wrong. It's not like I didn't like picking apart that argument, because I actually did enjoy it. Picking it apart, just, tearing it apart. But after a while, after you hear all the doublespeak that comes within that argument, and just like the hamster wheel type effect that it has, that you just keep going round and round, all the whole time assuming that we're on a non-inertial spinning reference frame, well, you're already begging the question. And just the spinning the wheels, that's just a waste of time. So prove the Earth is spinning first, before we talk about a Coriolis effect that comes afterwards that we don't see anyway. Okay? So yeah, that's
Yeah, a Coriolis effect that we don't see anyway, which, when begging the question of a non-inertial spinning reference frame that is a presupposed spinning Earth, they then are justifying why they've not got the Coriolis deviation that they're supposed to have, again, whilst assuming Earth is spinning. And so it goes on, like you say, on the hamster wheel, round and round, with them flipping between, no, we do see deviation, this bullet shows it, this ball that Neil deGrasse Tyson's referencing shows it, to, no, we don't have it on the drone, we don't have it on the helicopter, we don't have it on the flight, and then justifying why, again, whilst assuming Earth spinning the whole bloody time. So, yeah, we've got to the point where we know where they're in is.
Even the simple cause of it, right? Before, they used to fight that the cause of the Coriolis effect that we don't see would be an object moving in a straight line in the air above a rotating Earth. At some point, it became, they're fighting for the Earth to not be rotating underneath things, like a helicopter. That's literally their argument. Their argument is to fight that we don't see the Coriolis, while in the meantime, the Coriolis is their argument.
That was the desperation that they got to, Chocolate. My favourite bit was just to prove that you and probably one of the greatest scientific proofs they did provide this year, to prove that tangential speed was carried with you by taking a tractor and a trampoline and driving.
This is Simon Dan. That's Simon Dance. So yeah, to the point where if you were a tertiary watcher of the debate, you would hear a fundamentalist religious globehead zealot arguing that we shouldn't see deviation, that you retain angular velocity of the begged question, i.e. of the Earth he's assuming or she's assuming is rotating anyway. Now, Simon Dan comes along and goes, oh right, so we retain velocity. Now, not to mention the fact that if you apply that to a helicopter, it violates the first law of thermodynamics. As it raises in altitude, it's traversing a greater circumference. Therefore, it's increasing speed to maintain the speed of the ball below. No, that's a violation of the first law of thermodynamics. But to get around it, they've got this setup where there's a tractor dragging a trampolinist to justify why we don't see deviation, the very deviation that's supposed to prove Earth spins. It just gets so ludicrous when they assume Earth spins. But that's how funny these idiots are. This instance being Simon Dan, that very idiot.
And
then there was that slow. I'm sorry, Tom.
No, go ahead. No,
I
you
was
go.
going to say then there was that slow progression from where the cause was something is moving over a rotating Earth, right? That used to be the cause of the Coriolis. You know, something would have to leave the ground. Then all of a sudden, it's not leaving the ground that causes the Coriolis. It's the change of latitude. Really? Well, how did you change that latitude? You still would have to leave the ground, right? Ah.
And if anyone's trying to get around that, if they're claiming there's a Coriolis effect, which is to say 2 reference frames, and you need to change latitude to experience this, not actual deviation, then ask them how the Foucault pendulum or ring laser or fibre optic or any claim to be proof of Earth spin gyro shows the deviation without changing latitude lines. It's pretty much stationary, just having a separate reference frame demonstratable by the detached spinning or swinging pendulum. But of course, that's not moving any latitude lines now, is it?
And I think it got so bad that at one point they started arguing that you only need 1 reference frame to have Coriolis. I mean, this argument, it's just getting drugged around because it's just so nonsensical. But in a way, I am glad that we've torn it apart because now it's just easy. We could just look.
I think you hit on it there, Chuck. There was a point where we didn't understand what Coriolis was. It wasn't anything to do anymore with the 2 reference frames. It was to do with the tangential speed you collect at 1 latitude, and the differentials of those tangential speeds is the thing that then caused their new differential Coriolis, which explained why flight times weren't reduced. It was just you were nearer the equator, you were just traveling sideways faster than you were at London.
And yet you can fire a bullet or throw a ball, in the case of Neil deGrasse Tyson's example, on a football field and observe a field goal being made purely because Earth's rotated underneath that football. No change in latitude line, just Earth claimed to be rotating underneath, as would be the case with Coriolis effect and its 2 necessitated, is that a word? Reference frames. Shout out to Al Junkie again, who says, who reference framed Simon Dan? I did! Ha ha ha! Thanks for the super chat.
So what I was going to say, Chocolate, was we can't forget the best gift of the year when Anthony Riley set up George Muser and Fight the Flat Earth for that epic show where George Muser just laid it to the ballers. And he's a baller.
Yeah, and the cheeky stroke. That reminded me. He copyright stroked me, didn't he? And lost.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Channeling 10th man. Yeah, the walls are closing in, so the pressure's on the
Pressure, you say?
Because the walls are closing. Never mind.
How's there pressure on the globe?
He did preface it with the walls are closing in.
Hold on.
Here,
We
let
got
me
to
give you pressure on the.
hold
No,
on.
but the
Let me
walls are
give.
actually expanding in the universe, supposedly. So
Sure. You said copyright strike. Who copyright striked you for what?
So that was after Riley's baiting of Fight the Fat Girth. The video the crushing of Riley came out that he gathered, didn't he? And he released the video with such great lines that Chocolate, I'm sure, will will recount for us. But in doing so, I put a small video out, kind of pointing out the contradictions of what he'd hoped George Musa would say and what George Musa actually said, which was to back us up, that being that gravity is not a force.
Go ahead, Chocolate.
And in doing that, he
hold on, Adam.
copyright
Go ahead.
strike me.
Hold on, just before you get to the copyright strike bit. Yes,
Yeah.
Chocolate, go ahead.
Yeah, I gotta say that the whole fight the flat earth George Muser thing that Anthony sparked was a beautiful thing, and I think it's another reason why, like right next to Coriolis, gravity has a nice little tombstone also, because I mean, it effectually, this guy that represents the quote unquote scientific community, right, comes out on an interview with a Glober and says things like gravity is not a force, but you can think of it as a force, right? Beautiful quotes like, we can, we do, we must consider Newtonian gravity as a force. It doesn't mean it really is one, but we don't necessarily have to work at the really is level. Unquote. I mean, this is coming from the same science that you guys are trying to defend. And this is what he comes out and tells you guys. Right? So we're supposed to take that seriously?
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Thank you, Chocolate. So this is the context of the video, and Adam has obviously pointed out some glaring contradictions between what Fight the Fat Earth has in his mind as what will be the answers he gets out of George Musa and the actual answers he got out of George Musa. So that's where we're up to. So then you get a copyright strike, you say?
Oh, well, first we got a sarcastic comment on the video, actually, as I remember. Copyright strike coming in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then we did get the copyright strike, which obviously, as I remember, took advice from you, Nate. Just say, how do we respond to it? You know what I mean? So challenged it and said we were happy to go to court or whatever. So put the ball back in his court, and then he bottled it, didn't he? I think didn't respond, so we were upheld, and we were allowed to put the video back up, and it's still on there on the Iron Realm Media channel. Picture of Darth Vader, saying gravity is not a force on that one. So, and that's all it was. It was really just a little bit of repetition, editing of those lines that Chocolate just said there, because they were just fantastic. After all the crap that he'd said he was going to do, he was going to get a top physicist to prove Riley wrong, the bloke came out and backed up at exactly the point of what we and Riley were saying. So, yeah, good bit of the year, that.
Well, let's not forget how he started that whole show with George Muser. And I have it written here to read, just a short paragraph. This is Craig, Fight the Flat Earth. My dad always told me, don't screw around. Just go to the source. So I did that. Here's my interview with George Muser, contributing editor for Scientific America. Suck it, Riley. And then the whole show backfired on him.
Wow.
That's his start.
Yeah, and the whole point of George Musa's first entry into this field wasn't through Fight the Flat Earth. It was actually through Quantum Eraser quoting him continually in regards to him stating that Newton had snapped the wand in two. No,
Yeah,
Einstein snapped
just-
the... I'll get it right
yeah.
eventually. Einstein snapped the wand in two. I'll get there in the end.
Yep. And Riley did pick up on that and like to cite that. And because of that, I guess Fight the Flat Earth found it necessary to find George Mooser to set the story straight, right? Well, he did just that. He came on your hangout and clearly expressed that gravity is not a force, which is exactly what our whole point was the entire time. So how you ran around after that, considering yourself, to have a win, just baffles me. That's our whole point. Gravity's not a force.
This is coming from a very high up editor in Scientific American, and that's something else that's sort of permeated throughout our community throughout 2019, which is the recognition of pseudoscience as science. So where we are told that science is proving X, Y, and Z, it turns out that no, there's quite a few liars who say they're using science and in fact are not. Therefore, what they're actually purveyors of is pseudoscience, a non-application of the scientific method. And I think there's lots of people out there now who understand this and can pick apart a claim of science based on its actual scientific validity. And I think that's probably, in my humble opinion, our biggest win in 2019. You can't attribute the sky vacuum, how can you have gas pressure without a container, to 2019. I'd say that became more prevalent 2018. But the science and its actual adherence has become prevalent in 2019. If anyone disagrees, feel free to say.
No, you'd said it perfect, because the scientific method was described perfectly here on the show on many occasions by Quantum Eraser and others. And then the Baltards, rather than clapping and saying bravo for describing the scientific method properly, they went and fought it.
Well, think about who they had backing them up, right? Because Mr. Michio Kaku was very happy to say that nobody in his field uses the scientific method. They work by the seat of their pants, leaps of logic, guesswork, right?
Such a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's coming from your side, guys. He's blatantly telling you. And again, remember, this is the same guy also who said that science has cosmology wrong to a factor of 10 to the 120th power. It's one with 120 zeros after it. The greatest mismatch between theory and experiment ever. They're telling you guys that what you believe is full of shit. They tell you that. That stuff is flat, right? These guys tell you that shit. They're not sugarcoating it just because they have a little picture of a little floating ball in the background. Are you kidding? This is nonsense. I just heard the other day, Vsauce, that freaking fool Vsauce had a little interview somewhere where he says, what's the exact one? He says, I don't know that it's a ball. Something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing with him because I just heard it the other day, but I mean, he blatantly comes out and says, I don't know it's a ball and it's never been proven. Vsauce, the guy who made the flat earth video so long ago, trying to destroy it. Now, all of a sudden, it's never been proven?
Really?
Isn't that our fucking point?
When did that happen?
Bro, hold on. Let me try to go find it. Give me a second. But yeah, I don't know exactly when the interview happened. I know it was pretty recent because I had not seen it before. But yeah, blatantly comes on and says, oh yeah, we know it's an oblate spheroid, but I don't know it and it's never been proven. Give me a second. Let me find out. I'll post it in Skype because it's just funny.
Speaking of which, we got to give some honors to Neil deGrasse Tyson for saying so many wonderful things on our behalf this last year.
Shout out retracted. So Neil deGrasse Tyson just toes the line with the actual heliocentric rhetoric rather than the trench rhetoric that we have to deal with here. For example, and not limited to, if you observe a ball flying through the air and curving into a goal, that would be because you have remained on a non-inertial spinning reference frame that is a turning Earth, and the ball has left that turning reference frame and entered the inertial reference frame and appeared to drift and curve because you were rotating underneath it. Now that is the actual heliocentric rhetoric that assumes Earth is turning and that ball curve is caused by the Earth turning underneath the ball. Now that is just the simple straight heliocentric rhetoric that is denied by the people who argue here in the trenches because they're here to justify why it doesn't deviate while simultaneously assuming Earth spins. So we can then show them, by way of heliocentric priest Neil deGrasse Tyson, what the actual rhetoric is, so we can then demolish it by pointing out that there is no deviation. Helicopters, drones, planes, none of them are affected by Earth rotating underneath them as they must if there's a claimed deviation called Coriolis. Now Coriolis is real, but we'll argue about why we don't see the effect. But Neil deGrasse Tyson only gets kudos for being somebody that toes the heliocentric line, as is the case when you're on TV and no one's there to challenge you and go, really? The ball deviated because Earth rotated underneath. Well, if Earth rotated underneath the ball, it would also rotate underneath this aeroplane I'm travelling from Charlotte, North Carolina to LA on, and I'd arrive in an hour and a half because Earth would be rotating underneath in the same way you assert it rotates underneath this football. Ergo destroying the assertion that Earth's rotating underneath as claimed by the heliocentric priest. But he doesn't deserve a shout out. All he's doing is perpetuating the lie by way of the actual lie rather than the deceptive, weaselly, sleazy lie that we have to deal with here in the trenches. So does that deserve a shout out? No, absolutely not. Shout out retracted.
Well, right, Nathan, though, it's an interesting turn, maybe not just this year, but it's been more noticeable in that, as you say, in the trenches, actually they're not directly throwing their high priests under the bus, but they are contradicting the rhetoric that people like Neil deGrasse Tyson present as their model, and they are actually saying no, they're wrong to defend their position now. So they no longer have even a coherent argument on their side. In the trenches, they're actually contradicting, like I said, their priests to be able to continue to keep worming and screaming, Coriolis being the great example of that.
Real quick, Nathan, I put the that video in Master B. It's only like 11. It's like a short little clip of him saying it.
Okay.
Play it?
Oh, is it like trimmed out?
Yeah, it's already trimmed out. Shout out to Indio 007 on 24/7. He trimmed it out. So
10 seconds. Will I get a copyright strike for it?
It is a three-dimensional spheroid. However, I don't know that, and it has not been proven. Science does.
Wow. Good enough. Before we round out the live show,
that last line he says, it hasn't been proven. Science doesn't prove anything. That's the the second you missed out. At the end, he says science doesn't prove anything.
Just play it again.
Know that, and it has not been proven. Science doesn't prove anything.
Science does prove things. What an absolute jerk. So science proves or disproves your hypothesis, otherwise known as scientific prediction. It proves the cause of the effect you observed at step 1 of the scientific method if you confirm your hypothesis. Science absolutely proves things. If it didn't prove things, why the hell would anybody do it? No, your pseudoscience religion that you preach, that doesn't prove anything and is capable of being adjusted to fit your narrative at any time you see fit. Science, on the other hand, is absolutely set in stone. Once you have validated, empirically, the cause of an effect, you've proven the cause of the effect, and it is inviolable. You cannot change that. It's the cause. Simple. So just to round out the
This
live
is
show,
the,
there was just one more thing on the same subject, Adam, which is to say we had a housekeeping question added. So on the last day of 2019, or first day for those in Australia of 2020, we had any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics added to the housekeeping questions at request of Quantum Eraser, and a very worthy addition I feel it is, because it speaks to this very point. There is no scientific evidence of the heliocentric religion, and when you point that out to them, they'll say, as has been said by what's the name of his channel again? Vsauce. Michael correctly identifies, as all zealots would, that science doesn't prove anything. Oh, really? It doesn't prove anything? No? Well, what about all the scientific evidence, which is absolutely and completely infallible in terms of being able to be repeated again and again and again with exactly the same result? Because you've proven the cause. He's just a zealot. And there is not... Sorry, just to round it up. There is no scientific validity to any assertion on the heliocentric side. So maybe 10th Man, if you can talk about Dr. Becky to round out this live show, and then I'll ask people to stay tuned if they're watching on the premiering stream.
Yeah, Dr. Becky, please respond to the multiple requests that we just talked about. A single viable scientific hypothesis in the entire history of either astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics. All I saw you do was sit at a computer, go through email, study some pictures of supposed space, but no science was done. So, Dr. Becky, I'm still waiting. Maybe we'll get an answer in 2020.
Shout out to Retro Bill, who says Happy New Year to the entire panel. Here's to another victorious year. Thank you very much for your support, Retro Bill. Really do appreciate it. Any last comments for the last live show of 2019?
Yeah, Happy New Year. Keep it safe.
I think we got to give another honorable mention to Danny Faulkner. This clown who decides to reference Hillbilly Blue Balls for a video, gas pressure without a container. Meanwhile, the guy's got 2 containers in the video. And yeah, that's a very good fail, my friend. And that's sad coming from a PhD in what is it? Astronomy?
Astronomy.
Danny Faulkner? Yeah. That's who he goes to? He doesn't even have like a PhD buddy that he can go to say, hey, give me your best scientific experiment. Let me shut these flat earth fools down. No. He references that, a video that we already debunked, that he pretty much debunks himself by putting 2 containers in a video and calling it gas pressure without a container? Are you kidding?
And with that, I'm going to say, first of all, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making this live show possible. Stay tuned if you are watching on Nathan Oakley premiering stream, as there will be an after show to follow. A very happy new year to all of you still in 2019, and all of you on the Australian continent, a happy 2020 to you already. I've been Nathan Oakley. As I say, stay tuned if you're watching on the premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Phenomenons.
Oh, we got so many, huh?
There's too many, man. I couldn't even. shout out to that lady. I can't.
Phenomenal shoes and reference frame pants.
The lady that got interviewed by Wakey Wakey. Shout out to her. The model is wrong, quote unquote. Oh yeah. What? Your model's wrong. Really? Miss Exoplanet astrophysicist, world renowned, running around giving people lectures and TED Talks and all that. And she just can flippantly say, oh, the model is wrong. When asked, why are people seeing the moon in Florida and Australia at the same time? Oh, that can't happen. Oh, yeah, it does happen. Oh, maybe it just happens every once in a while. No, it happens every day.
Come on,
all the time.
Come on.
And she says, oh, well, the model's wrong then. Yeah, don't worry.
But look, if optics can bend the ball into a perfect flat plane into the distance, then it can damn well wrap around the sightings of the stars around as well and the moon. So if there is this terrestrial refraction going on to such a scale, then what wouldn't be possible optically?
Or the models are wrong.
Anything's possible in Narnia, like you say, like that. I think she was an astrophysicist as opposed to an astronomer, but she basically said, "Yeah, just change the model then." That was her reaction.
Nice.
Yep, the model is wrong.
Wait, hang on. If the excuse me, the model is a ball and you got to change it, what are you going to change it to?
They tried a pair.
Come on, Arwen. They tried a pair. Hey, have you noticed Neil deGrasse Tyson showing up with his little masterclass advert every time you go to a Flat Earth channel?
Yep, I see that crap all over the place though.
And it's interesting how well placed they are. You know, every time I go to Flat Earth, I see Neil deGrasse Tyson saying, "Guess what? Science proof things." Yeah.
What?
Yeah, he says the masterclass science and the truth is the truth. You got to accept it. So in his mind, science proves things, and it's
He
you
literally
have to
says,
accept it.
"I'm going to teach people how to think,
Yeah,
not how to think for yourself or anything. I'm going to teach you how to think." I could only really
Come on,
watch
guys.
half of the advertisement
Guys,
because it was just pissing me off.
Science doesn't prove anything, but you can think of it as proving something. So
yeah,
in
yeah.
his mind, he can think it'd be proving something, and that would be okay. Wouldn't be
but
correct.
see what?
You
Yeah,
think
no,
about
you're
the
both right.
world
But
in the
the
specific
psychology
way they want
behind
you
it,
to, then their story works fine.
the psychology behind it is that they're losing so bad to just 8 housekeeping questions that they got to resurrect Neil deGrasse Tyson, who says science does prove things, but I got to teach you how to think before we go there.
Basically.
Oh, it's classic. I mean, I'm just seeing them backpedal so much and saying things we've been saying, and then somehow still holding up the globe as the truth.
Yeah, it's been a bad year for the globe, and I can only speak from personal experience when I say it's been a fairly relaxing year, 2019, as a flat earther. I mean, it started terribly for me with lots of attacks on my channel, but with the exception of that, it was a fairly, easygoing year with us winning and watching lots of distress in globe heads. So we ended up with things like Share Your Pain, and the episode I released as a repeat on, I think I released it on Saturday. So like there was a whole string of brand new shows over Christmas, and then the very last one before I went live again was actually a repeat. But it was the first episode where we got into sort of hints at that, where we've got somebody on, really fighting their cause, losing badly, and we're like, come on, share your pain.
That's us trying to get them to come off the mic or come off mute and just tell us how do we have gas pressure without a container? Who proved that we're moving in any direction? Who? And it's painful for them to try to tell us that thing. That's why we have people like the guy yesterday who came here. Oh well, the heliocentric model is closed. What? Okay.
Yeah, that was again. They're backtracking and they're saying what we're saying, but coming up with a different equation for it while they're saying it. So it shows their doublespeak. But Nathan, I want to take this time to say something about the most, I would say, fabulous yet also sad at the same time, but best moment that ever happened. And that was when you went to Globebusters and stood your ground. That was awesome.
Yeah, it's quite touching. The other day, Anthony said, "Well, I'll paraphrase what he said. He still backs me on that subject, which is something I've tried to forget, if I'm honest. But when he brought it back up and was like, "Oh no, I absolutely still support your sentiment in all regards in that," and sort of rehashed his feelings on the matter, I was like, literally, I was quite touched, like choked up when he said it. I was like, really? Wow, I'm really, really touched. But there we go. It's one of them. That was bad in terms of I suffered virtually no growth for almost the entire year, and then in the last month or maybe 2 months, I've started to grow again, which is great. You know, I've tipped over 15,000 subs. I'll soon tip over 16,000 subs, which is great. In other words, the growth that I saw before going on Globebusters has now resumed, which is wonderful. But yeah, for a very long period of time, I basically stagnated. But there we go. That's just the way things go, and I knew that would happen. I'm sure I said it at the time. I said it before.
You did the right thing, Nathan.
Well, yeah. While we're on the live show, I think it was maybe the second to last thing I said was that there's a lot of people in the community now that appreciate where pseudoscience is being punted as being empirical science. And now, great, whoever, I think it was Chocolate that shared that link. Thank you so much. That was perfect. With Vsauce saying science doesn't prove anything. Yeah, it does. It's assisted the advancement of humanity for quite some period of time based on its empirical nature of proving things. But they don't have any proof. And they call what they have science. Well, that understanding has now permeated through our entire community, and it started with me going on Globebusters. Well, that took a lot of understanding that it would be detrimental in the short term. Now, I'm just like, yeah, I'm just going to have to take it on my chin short term. After literally having my channels, all of them, be shut down by like 25 copyright strikes across all my channels. So I was like in a position of complete and total weakness. But there we go, that's life, right? Happy days. I'm glad I'm through the other side of that. It wasn't a very much fun time, but I knew that it had to be done, and I was told by Quantum Eraser that it would come. I just didn't expect it to be Bob, and I didn't expect it to be then. But it was the case that, what was the Netflix had released a very spun, very biased presentation called Behind the Curve. And in it, Bob had declared scientific validity to a ring laser, or fibre optic gyro, my bad, in terms of proving Earth spinned. Now, they took his contrapositive statement and made that into the proof, which is weaselly. And I'd be pissed if I was Bob, because they basically twisted his words. Now, upon them doing that, he dug around it, carried on asserting that it was science, and that was where I checked him and said, no, number one, this proof is useful, because if it's asserted that the Earth's turning underneath a fibre optic gyro, then we've got 2 reference frames, and therefore flights would have reduced flight times if the Earth's turning underneath them. So their assertion, or in this case, unfortunately for Bob, your assertion, that it's not actually Earth turn, it's the stars turning, is inconsequential, it's not scientific, it's not adhering to the scientific method. But ultimately, if you want to use that against them, and I think I even used the Foucault pendulum to make it less, painful. I didn't actually use their example. I transposed it into the pendulum and said, look, if the pendulum's swinging and Earth's turning underneath, then it's also turning underneath drones and flights. So, use it to your advantage in that regard. But ultimately speaking, if you're still to assert that the pendulum proves Earth spinning, what's the independent variable? What's the dependent variable? What's the observed phenomena? Oh, it's a man-made device. And so ends the claim of scientific validity given to the fibre optic gyro, ring laser gyro, any gyro, pendulum, or any other apparatus asserted as science. Now, that started life, I think it was actually 2018, but nevertheless, with the Cavendish balls. The Cavendish, quote-unquote, experiment, which it isn't. It's no observed phenomena. It's conjured within the apparatus, therefore you can't adhere to step 1 of the empirical, does actually prove things, Vsauce, method of science. So that's where it all began, and personally, now, I go, yeah, it was absolutely worth it. It's made our New Year's live show as one of the things that has been a top point to point out about 2019, the recognition of pseudoscience over science assertion. Well, that's worth it, in my humble opinion. Despite the lack of growth and loss of income and all the other horrible things. But there we go. It's not just about the money. If it was, I would have never have done that. I knew it would be detrimental to not only my credibility. People would say I'm a charlatan and Bob's wonderful and you're wrong and he's right. Regardless of how wrong or right either party is. And therefore that would cost me subscribers, cost me revenue, cost me all the things that people claim I'm only interested in. It's like, no, I just wouldn't have done that if I was only interested in those things, because I knew it would affect them. And it did, vastly. You know, I'm now recovering. Hallelujah.
Well, that's just honorable
much
and
props
right
to
do.
you, Nathan.
Right.
No, we backed you all the way. I would have gone off the show if you had capitulated, because then you wouldn't be who I thought you were. So I am saying, good job, well done. And one of the best moments of the show ever was when you stood your ground to the truth, for the truth.
Totally agreed.
It's just a fucker it was Bob, because Bob's a good guy. There's no need for one of our own. I'd have much preferred it was, you know, somebody like Jason, that guy that went out tranny bashing and had a free meal on Patricia, only to turn around and live stream and call her a tranny. Well, those sorts of people would be the kind of flat earther I'd prefer to be chopping the head off of, rather than someone like Bob. You know, like, your heart sinks when you find out that that's the person you've got to confront. Not because he's overtly doing it to such a detrimental effect that he needs checking, because there's plenty of people on YouTube that incorrectly use this vernacular, but he'd gone on Netflix. Well, he'd done that with the best of intentions, so basically it's like kicking him while he's down. Well, I was completely conscious of that also, but at the same time aware of the massive permeation that Netflix was having with Behind the Curve. Still to this day, people will quote Bob as being the verified scientific proof of Earth turn. So you go, well, back, 8-9 months ago now, that had to be checked. In you know, because otherwise it's just, no, the game over, flat earthers, they've debunked themselves. Here's Bob proving Earth spins, and another, you know, he doesn't even get a mention because of Bob in this instance. But Jaren was claimed to have proven that Earth is curving. What bloody outrage that was. Again, complete nonsense. Just hijacking of one of his many tests that he'd done over water. And you go, okay, right, they're just going to hijack whatever anybody said. But that, you know, doesn't need to happen continually if it's checked and corrected. And if everybody's, you know, grown up about it. And unfortunately for me, Bob reacted badly. And, you know, a string of ad homs against me is what I had to suffer in order to get that point across to a very important figure in this community, and he still is. You know, the last person I wanted to be chopping the head off was Bob. But as I say, QE explained it to me when I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I can win every argument just by asking for the actual scientific proof they've got when they claim science. This is great. And QE was like, not so fast. There's gonna come a time. It's like Yoda. There's gonna come a time where you're gonna have to fight one of your own with this sword. It's got two edges, and one of those edges is sharpened just for flat earthers who use the magic word science when they want to claim they've got some empiricism for a just so story or mechanical apparatus that they're using to prove something they claim they're proving. Well, unfortunately, the method of science was ingrained into us as children as being empirical, which it is. So that later in life, when they use the magic word science, at a base level, we all understand, oh, they've proven something then. And when the tyre manufacturer on the advert says, we've scientifically validated these tyres are better than our competitor, you go, science, hey? And you believe them and go and buy the tyres. It's just simple trickery. But is it science? Have they observed a phenomena? Have they formulated a hypothesis with independent and dependent variable and a null to make it empirical? Have they gone forth to perform systematic experimentation to validate that which they assume caused the natural phenomena of tyres? Well, no, of course not. But we've all been duped into believing pseudoscience is science. And that was worth it. It was worth it because now we see people winning with these arguments. At first, it was, you know, no offence to him, it's just the only one I can remember, Spurs. He's like a kid with a chainsaw. You know, someone makes a random claim about something not scientific and he's like, what's your independent variable? It's like, no. They've got to actually have claimed they've got scientific evidence first, mate. But, you know, those days are, I think, past us. People now get it. Because we were all taught it in school. We all understand why it's empirical because we were told and shown why it was empirical when they taught us at a very early age. So when we come along as flat earthers and go, no, you already know this stuff. You were taught it in school. People kind of go, yeah, I do. And that's where we get them in pain. Because they all know at a base level that we're not lying when we say science does prove things. We have got scientific data.
Yeah, the problem is not that they weren't taught. The problem is that in their conduct from the point on where they have been taught, it's not followed up upon. It's just abandoned. It's not used anymore, and they just start to do other things, and that's the problem.
Yeah. Actually, it was the best thing at the best time, because you have to go back to fundamentals all the time, because that's your base that you operate from. And you turned it away from Nathan Oakley to the scientific method. It became the scientific method. Then everybody started talking about what is the scientific method, what it's not. And remember, Zanuck and these guys would come on and say, no, that's not the scientific method. And then we just keep staying on the fundamental proper description of what the scientific method was. And we held that line. Now, contrast that with the fact that prior to you doing this with that second edge of that sword to a fellow flat earther, you and QE and us to others on this panel do it on a daily basis, where we hold our own words accountable, and we are corrected all the time about phraseology and how we say things, the context in which we say things. So when you did it, it was no big deal to us, because I had it done to me, just because we're looking for the purity of the essence of what we're talking about to shine, and not our egos. When you went to Globebusters, that's not your panel. They're not used to you. All of a sudden, you do what you do to us, to them. Bam. But
not just that, though, because remember, there was also personal friction between Nathan and Bob was kind of being arrogant and very, very dismissive. So we all wanted you to do that because he deserved it too, even though it's not really good to basically attack one another, being big flat earthers. It needed to be done.
Hold on. Hold on, just 1 second, Elijah. What do you mean deserved what? He wasn't getting attacked. He was being
broken out of his dream. No, but that's the problem.
No, corrected in terms of an inaccuracy that's detrimental to our argument as flat earthers. Our argument in regards to there being no scientific validity is for nothing if we on our own side assert science when we don't have any. So that's not an attack on Bob, but you're saying, he deserved it because he was a dick. Well, no, that didn't come into it.
Well, I guess maybe not in a direct way, but it did play alongside of it, because you tried to communicate it at a distance, and he was just super dismissive every time. So you needed to put it right in front of him, voice to voice, as it were.
Well, that wasn't actually the first time I had to use that side of the blade in terms of the scientific method. Now, I hope he doesn't mind me talking about this, but Dr. John Dee had the exact same treatment from me. Now, albeit over email, far more calm, because you're doing it in a measured way when you're typing out what you're typing out, but the reaction was similar. Nowhere near as overtly ad hominem me, but nevertheless, that aside, the reaction was very similar, because there was certain levels of Dr. John Dee's videos that he'd made that asserted that he had made experimental validity when he'd gone out and performed tests with lasers. Now, if you're talking in terms of scientific vernacular, the word test means experiment. And that, as part of my explanation to him why he was being detrimental to our argument at the time, and I was having to point this out to him. Now, who the hell am I? This is a PhD'd up spectroscopy expert. Who the hell am I? Right, but I'm still there as a total layman without a single, accredited scientific degree to my name, telling a doctor what's what, not only about something about flat Earth, but something specifically about what science is. From his perception, the arrogance level on my part is extreme, right? But I persevered with him and explained where I was coming from, why it was detrimental to our argument, why he was wrong. This is Dr. John Dee. And with a bit of patience and a bit of time, he got it. And eventually he dedicated a video to me about gas pressure without a container. So, all's rosy. And I'm like, oh, great. That was where QE was saying it'll be hard and one day he'll have to chop a flat earther's head off. I thought that was it. I thought, oh, brilliant. Dr. John Dee is my, having to, go through this process with one of my own, rather than going, ha ha ha, I'll crap on your religion and laugh at you because I don't care, Fundy. Well, no, you can't do that when it's a doctor who's very much a flat earther and is fighting for your cause. How do you attack it when you're saying, no, mate, I know you're a doctor, I know you're qualified, but this is not an experiment, which is basically what I was saying to him. And with very, very little persuasion. In fact, immediate concession from Dr. John Dee. He was like, yeah, you're absolutely correct. You would need cause and effect reasoning and a hypothesis. He got it, but then went on to justify why it was an experiment for a couple of emails back and forth. And then conceded completely and made corrections. Because that's what suddenly he had to, like Bob, recognise that there's a certain magic to using the words of science, like experiment. And when you stop using them, suddenly some of the luster is lost. Now, in reality, Dr. John Dee's data and his demonstrations are superb. They're absolutely amazing. It doesn't take anything away to stop calling them experiments when they're not. And he recognised that with very little persuasion. But persuasion was needed, I assure you. So I hope, if you're listening to this, Dr. John Dee, you don't mind me exposing that particular bit of information, but hopefully enough time's passed and forgiveness is easier than permission and all that crap.
Well, fast forward to end of 2019 and he's a ball buster. So work that all out.
So what you guys are saying is so true, because I'm just a guy from Brooklyn. I didn't go to college. I'm just a regular hard worker out here, and I didn't know any of this stuff coming in, but I knew something was wrong. And when I found your show and I found out what the scientific method was, it took a lot more than Google. It took a lot more than YouTube, because this stuff isn't clear and they throw you off. They purposely try to throw you off by saying math is a proof of science and all of these things. So you have to really, really dig and really research. And once I found that the scientific method really was the scientific method, I went balls to the wall. So, the regular people that I talk to on a day-to-day, go to parties with, things like this, it's very scary to be like, yo, I think the earth is flat, because we all know what happens. But I just went straight balls to the wall. I was like, space is fake, all of these things. And at first, it was very, very challenging, because everybody I knew was against me. But sticking to this argument and having my arguments getting sharper and sharper and pointing them to the places that they need to look and providing citations for my argument has allowed some of the most intellectual people to flip to my side. And now it's like 50-50 only in a year. And I had posted in the chat a picture that they did of me at first. And I told them, I said, eventually this is gonna be in the favor of me. So I'm not even tripping. And right now, the room is 50-50, at least in that Facebook group. And it's not a flat earth chat or anything like that. It's just regular people who are like, this dude is making sense. And I'm a nobody. So stick to the scientific method. It works.
Yeah, well said. And when you say I wasn't tripping, that's exactly what I mean when I say that it's been a relaxing 2019. Because I feel far more relaxed in terms of our argumentation. Yeah, we had all the tools in 2018. Housekeeping's been going a lot longer than it seems, Ranty? But while we had the tools then, they've all been thoroughly sharpened now.
Well, I think in that respect, we got to give a slight honorable mention to the Cavendish experiment, right? Because how many times was that asserted to us? Like, this is an experiment and it's proving something. Well, once we realize what we realize, it's like, wait a minute. What was the naturally observed phenomenon for that experiment? What was the dependent variable?
Oh, what was it supposed to even be proving? I don't think
exactly.
Oh, I can tell you that. I can give you the
gravity
hypothesis.
was just asserted in it.
The hypothesis is
somehow
if mass,
it has been mythologized as being a proof for gravity, while that was never the case.
If mass, then mass attracts mass. That's the hypothesis for the Cavendish experiment.
Yep. So
Well,
even
that's
before Coriolis, Cavendish got retired a while
that's
ago
gonna.
here. So
I don't want to miss the moment. That's going to happen tonight, New Year's Eve party here at the ranch. If food will attract 10th man.
So what we hoping for in 2020 then? Are you still with this, Adam?
Yep.
Got any aspirations for the next year?
Wow. God knows, mate. If I'd have thought what the past year would have bring. No, nothing really. I mean, just want to start to do a few more little shows and like little interviews and the likes, and just carry on plodding, doing bits and bobs for the flat. I've really enjoyed doing some of the intros and artworks for folks. So
More intros.
yeah, and just see where it takes us, mate. I mean, this thing just keeps growing, doesn't it? So I think the plan is foolhardy in this thing. I hope we can try and get it out. And I think from an Iron Realm point of view and I think from all of us is as we sit and look what platform we may be on next year. That's where's this YouTube ride going? How long will it last? I mean, I know we're not all in this necessarily for money, but with the way the censorship's going, is it going to get worse? Will we have to abandon it, or if we're, where does it lead us? So that's my curiosity for the year, really. See if we stay on YouTube.
we need more of the big names to come out, right? The guys with the credentials, like Danny Faulkner and Michio Kaku and that lady. I can never remember her name. Svetlana, something like that. That got interviewed by Wakey Wakey and all these people. Like, I think it's them that I want, right? Those guys that purport this nonsense narrative that will come out and say things like, "Oh, the model is wrong." Oh, really? I want to hear more of that.
I got news. I got news for you, Chocolate. If they can't defend the scientific method, which is what they're supposedly standing for, they definitely will not give up their income. The minute they show weakness, they are cut off from all funding, all academia, and they can't even stand by the purity of the scientific method. And again, this point is very subtle, and history, as they say, will look back. When Nathan Oakley said, "I'm going to say what the scientific method is, whatever it costs me." If that could be the same thing Neil deGrasse would do, or Dr. Becky would do, or Michio Kaku would do, glorious days, honesty returned to the scientific method, and people saying whatever it shows is empirical, we must go with the evidence takes us. They're not doing that. This show is doing that. And I'm just so happy to be a part of such a mixed group of people with differences, but all seeking the truth in the right way.
Yeah, well said, Tim.
Yeah, definitely. Do have to give another honorable mention this year to a statement that's made by Nathan that I think has grown and become extremely concise. So if you could tell us, Nathan, it's not actually a clock tower, right?
All right. No, it's not a clock tower. It's a slightly looming, non-standard refraction holographic projection of a clock tower from behind the reified edge of an Earth curve based on a begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator to turn a clock that you and I, the flat earther, see into a clock which is not really there. A mirage from behind the reified edge of an Earth curve.
And we just say clock 20 miles.
Right.
There it is.
Don't even have to say clock at 20 miles. You, as a flat earther, you can look at those pictures and go, clock.
Pretty much, yep. That's our argument. What's your
Zero
argument
explanation. I just remember one of the shows last year where we got a guy, I can't remember his name, it might have been Craig, something like that, and he was some sort of, they always claim to be some sort of expert of something, but he modelled an observation that Ranty had made of Barrow and Finesse. And he took rough geometry, plugged it into his sphere model, and then obviously it wasn't there, it's blocked by Earth curve. And he started to explain it's a slightly looming non-standard refraction high in a holographic projection from behind Earth curve then. You know, you bend the light at 7/6. It's like, if I explained to him, well, I just see it, it's just there. What explanation is needed? And his answer was none. And that's correct. As a flat earther, you can see something in the far distance and just state what it is. It doesn't matter what it is. Isle of Man, a clock tower, a roller coaster, it doesn't make any difference, a mountain range. You just state what it is, because there you see it, it's there, you believe the evidence of your own eyes. But if you are a fundamentalist religious zealot with a sphere belief, then it's not the Isle of Man, it's not a clock tower, it's not an oil rig, it's a slightly looming non-standard refraction hyena holographic projection of an oil rig. Why? Well, because this begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator says that we shouldn't see it, therefore it's a mirage. What the fuck? No, we don't live on a model. No, a calculator doesn't dictate what I see, my eyeballs do. There's an oil rig. That's it, end of explanation. But that's because I'm a flat earther, and without a religious zealot belief in a Earth curve model based on a calculator.
On that model, Nathan, and side view, was 2019 the year we got Muppet Vision, or was that?
No,
80?
that was 2017.
17 Muppet.
Yeah, that was early. Muppet Vision was when we were still discussing orthographic view and curve calculators. That's when the Muppet Vision thing came up.
Well, I'll tell you what I think is brewing in its infancy. That's going to be a monster. That came up in 2019. And that's QE having his own channel.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
So Ballbusters was typically on this channel when it first 19 episodes, 20 episodes, something like that. And to be perfectly honest, I just wangled not doing weekends and working the show schedule so I could have some time off so I didn't burn out. Now, burning out on YouTube is a very common thing, and it's something I don't want to do. But then QE says, oh, well, then you're free on Saturday to do Ballbusters. Wonderful. So Ballbusters is developed, and I hosted it. But then I wanted to actually offload it and convince QE that it would be in his best interests to have his own channel. And that's precisely what he did. So he took ownership of Ballbusters, which, to be fair, he does all the research, he does all the work. All I used to do was start and stop the show and say, hello, welcome. That's about it. So, you know, he still has me do that. Or Paula at the moment. But there we go. He's now the official host and owner of Ballbusters, which is wonderful because it's his show. And like I say, he puts in all the effort. But yeah, we had some wonderful, wonderful Ballbusters shows over the last year. It's been great.
Some rapid subs gain he got when he opened that channel as well. And that was impressive the way the channel grew, got to monetization and a community effort at setting it up.
It's very powerful because it's the information can be found and utilized. That's all people want, to be able to interact with information, and he provides that well.
Yeah, QE stepped up his game.
QE's contribution has been amazing.
Yeah, he's very much stepped up his game in 2019 as Quantum Eraser.
Is that strictly true, Nathan? Or knowing QE, it's more that he's shouted a lot more to get other people to do stuff to step his game up for him?
Well, that might seem that way on surface level, but behind that delegation is actually me saying, well, That's something you've got to do. And I'm very nonchalant and dismissive about it. I'm just like, well, yeah, you've got to do that. Well, you don't have to do that. The kind of that tone, you know what I mean? And then he's gone away and gone, well, I don't know how to do that. And then he's got you to do it. But it had to be done. I mean, to be fair, every checkbox I put in front of him, he checked. And quickly. And efficiently.
How about hey Adam, get stuffed.
Yeah, shout out to Adam getting stuffed in a little car. Shout out to not happening in 2020.
I like it.
And also not to forget, you get the added benefit of slightly different panel members with Betty and what's the other that panel. There's like slightly different, and it adds seasoning to the whole conversation.
Yeah, Ballbusters is a very refined panel. So Quantum Eraser, I'll throw him under the bus a little bit here, is exceptionally fussy about who becomes a ballbuster. I'm not going to lie. And even when you do, he's like, you're still on probation.
It's not that bloody fussy. That intro was so long because there's so many of us. But you're right. It is. What's good is it's drawn from. It's not just one area. Actually, I'm from Iron Realm. Dr. John D. You got. It's a very mixed bag, and like you said, it does give varied opinion, although very similar in many ways. But I don't think anybody agrees on everything totally in that scenario, which is, I think, is lends to what we've had, which is some really good conversations. I've been really enjoying the Ballbuster shows.
Yep, it's been an excellent summary of 2019. What a great round out show.
Well, another honorable mention would be Rancy's channel as well.
Yeah. What about it? Who cares?
Yeah, shout out to
no, just
Is he still here? Oh, he is. Oh, Ranty. Oh, sorry, didn't see you there.
He's on mute.
He's on mute. But just remember how Ballbuster started. We're back to the point of taking that stand with the scientific method. Then Globebusters decide to not have a show for a while. And Nathan says, well, if they're not going to have a show and there's people that are used to a show on that date, we'll start one. And if they ever restart it, we'll take ours off on that date. It was, I believe, on a Sunday at that point. And now look what happened. You took a stand, you did the right thing, and Ballbusters is the gift from it.
Yeah, out of that big pile of shit that I had to deal with, the rose that blossomed was Ballbusters. How lovely. And now it's QEs. Happy days.
Wonderful. It was great.
That's been a really good summary of 2019 too. This will obviously go out still in 2019 on second show. Shout out to everyone watching the second show, second channel.
Can I shout out one of my favorite arguments of 2019 that that alongside with Coriolis got laid to rest. I'm Miley Cyrus on a fucking pendulum, Zanuck.
Oh, I wanted to bring that up. Yeah. Miley on the pendulum. That was awesome.
No, it's I'm on the pendulum. I'm Miley fucking Cyrus.
Squirm for me, Zanuck.
Oh, speaking of which, that parody that Darth did.
Oh, that was classic.
The globe Earth dictate.
That was awesome.
You've made it when you've got a parody made of you. So yeah, Globe Earth Dictate with Ethan Woodley and Barbara. No.
But technically, Earth is pear-shaped.
You've joined just in time for the very last round out of 2019. How you doing?
Hello.
What's Loud Musa, Adam?
That was obviously the greatest song of 2019.
The greatest song.
you know, if we were doing the charts, it was obviously after I got the copyright strike removed, I was in a little gloaty mood. So I thought I'd have a go at doing some music, didn't I? That's just a little bit of those classic lines that Chocolate quotes, and I just put it to a little song I wrote.
Got it playing. How's the volume? Is it too loud to talk over, or shall I turn it down?
Wow. Do you want me? You've got it, haven't you?
Yeah, can you hear it?
I can't.
I could slightly hear it, but not really.
That's what I intended. I just want it playing in the background.
Yeah. So yeah, that was just
As we talk to the dulcet tones of George Musa saying, "Gravity's not a force, but you can think of it as a force."
Hey, Nan, what do you recall from 2019 as we're wrapping up 2019?
It's a shoe.
Hey, Temp. There's one thing, if we are doing just that, I just want to give a quick shout out to everybody and you of us here that helped and contributed to the historic Global Euro tour. And that was, again, for me, another great example of the community we've got, the way we could pull together and actually pulled that off. And for me, it was obviously memorable in parts, but particularly memorable for just getting out there, guys, and interacting with people and actually seeing the difference. Because I was part of the first one the year before, and that was a lot of strange looks at. But actually this year, and seeing the reaction of people and hearing the different reactions, particularly in Eastern Europe, you know, how much more accepted and open people were, and how mainstream people over there are promote it on TV with Malenko, the likes. It was a really good thing, and I do look back on that, and you know, with hindsight and seeing that, you can really see the shift, not people just accepting flat Earth, but actually no longer ridiculing it and beginning to look into it and considering it. And I think that's a huge achievement that YouTube, Globe Light, or Facebook, all of us that are chipping in with our little bits are slowly eating away, and hopefully we'll have a bigger nibble next year.
Well, you say next year. At this very moment, it'll have ticked over. Well, it's actually about 4 minutes ago, but we're now in 2020, at least in the UK, when this is being broadcast. And as it's broadcast from here and me, I'm going to say Happy New Year to you all.
Happy New Year!
Happy New Year!
And with that, oh, go on, Owen.
What? Just saying Happy New Year.
Oh, jolly good. Happy New Year to you too. And with that, I'll say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who did tune in on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Of course, another massive thank you to all of today's Discord and G+ panels for making this after show possible. Happy New Year to you. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!